This video is just for general information and reference about installing the hitch extension on the back of a Humvee. So if you've got the tire carrier on there and you want to tow generator trailer or any other military trailer that has these surge brakes on the front, yes, you can lift the tire up and you can put this on the hitch that's under the truck and set the tire carrier back down on the foot. But what ends up happening is the tire rubs on the top here. It actually will bend the runaway brake because of where everything sits. Now this tire's probably got half tread, more or less, and it even was rubbing. So the military has this extension piece here, and to install it on the airlift bumper, what you do is you remove the entire hitch assembly out of there. Now if you have the inner braces, you'll have to get shorter bolts that are grade 8 with washers to bolt the braces back to the center of the bumper there. So there's the inner braces. The next thing you need to do is you need to remove the trailer plug, harness, bracket, all that stuff from the bumper right here. You're also going to need to remove the foot from here, which looks like this. This is the actual foot that holds the tire carrier sits on. Okay, so you'll need to remove that, which will remove these two bolts here. Then you have to pull these two bolts out of the bumper also. The bumper's not going to go anywhere because it's got more bolts holding it in. Then you have to get underneath the truck and the wiring harness for the trailer. There's 3 clamps you're gonna have to undo. This was bolted up, this was screwed into the body. There's one here above the frame rail that was screwed into the body, and then there's one right here that was screwed into the body. This will give you enough slack to pull the harness through the bumper. Now, if you get a complete setup, there's a bracket right here, I don't know if you can see it, that actually bolts to the back of the bracket that holds your trailer socket, and it's got a spot to bolt one of those loops back to support the harness. So once you do all that, your next step is pull the harness through, bolt the bracket to the bumper. Now this bracket's got a slot in it because they want you to pull this harness out far enough that you slide it up through the slot and the flange sits in front of this. So that's in between there is the flange on your trailer harness bracket, and then you just put all the hardware back in for your spring-loaded cover, and that part's done. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take this big V-shaped hitch assembly, you're going to put it up to the vehicle, bolts go through, and you just bolt it back up. I just ran it on with a good impact gun. I don't know what the actual torque specs are. There is supposed to be this plate here, so when you buy one, make sure you get these plates that the bolts go through. The ones I've seen for sale, including this one that I bought, the hardware was all included, that bracket was included, so make sure you get everything when you buy one of these, because I'm not sure where you would get the parts otherwise, other than trying to look them up in the manuals and hopefully finding them somewhere surplus. Now, this is notched out here to accommodate for these raised reinforcements that go through the bumper. I already had the reinforcement plate, so I just left the plate on there and bolted it right to the face. I don't see where it makes a difference one way or the other, and I already had the plate. Now over here, obviously the foot is not going to fit back on there, because this is what was bolted right to the bumper, this foot, and this is what your tire carrier sits on. So what I did was I went to my local steel place, and I found some scraps that they sell by the pound, and I was able to replicate it, basically identical size and thickness, and then I just welded it directly onto the top of the hitch. It's sitting on the bumper, but it's welded onto the hitch extension. There's actually a spacer under here too to accommodate for the fact that the hitch extension sits a little bit lower than what the top of the bumper is. So you can't see it, but it's the spacer's welded on, and then this is welded to the bumper. Now the reason this looks different than this is because you see on here you have this big plate. This big plate is for a safety pin to go through, and there's a block on the tire carrier. See the block? This block originally was welded on the bottom. So what I did was I simply cut the two welds, and I moved it up to the face and welded it back on. And I actually welded it way more than what they had. And then gotta lift the safety. I put a lot more welds on all of this than they used originally. So this will drop right down on there. And it'll just sit there. And then you'll put this safety pin right through there. I don't know how much the safety pin actually does. I'm sure it's supposed to be one of those fancy ones with the push button on the end, something like that. Or maybe you can even put a long shanked padlock through there, stop somebody from getting into the back of the vehicle or slow them down. When I made this up, this piece, you can see I used that's at least 3/8 steel. This is 3/8. This back piece here, I believe, was 3/4 thick. So when I welded all this together, what I ended up doing was I made this piece, tacked it to this, put it on the drill press, drilled straight through this, straight through that. That way the holes were perfect for where I wanted them. Cut the tack off. Then I made sure this was fit on here exactly how I wanted it. I put a bolt through the whole thing and stuck a nut in between here. I believe it was a 3/8 diameter bolt, so just a standard 3/8 nut I put in there. You could go thicker if you want, and then a nut on the end. So this was all bolted together, and I was able to place it exactly where I wanted it, tack it, and then weld it, and then pull the bolt out and open the tire carrier back up and finish fully welding everything. You have to have a space here, because otherwise when you go to open this, it'll hit here and it'll just bind up. The welds I did, I actually had to grind down on this side. Originally they only weld this on the top and bottom. I welded it all the way around, but I had to grind the welds down on the inside here because it was actually binding for me to open. So, you know, like I said, that's how I modified it. The foot here, this part here, I actually used a piece of a large piece of rectangular box tubing. You need a 3/8 wall though, and that way it already had the bend in it, the nice curved bend. I just cut it to the right width and then cut the piece out that I needed to replicate the foot. So like I said, just some information in case you need to put this on there, you're wondering about putting one of these on there, or if you need to tow trailers and stuff. Yeah, you can get away without this thing on there. And I don't know what the tongue capacity is on this, but as far as these military trailers go, properly loaded, they're basically perfectly balanced. There's like no tongue weight on them at all. I mean, I can easily pick the tongue up on this and move this generator around if I absolutely had to by myself, because they're pretty balanced. I did previously have one of those adapters on here on the bumper itself that puts a receiver hitch under here. I'm not sure if I'm going to put that back on there. I only use it for moving stuff around here and there. It's not like I really off-road this vehicle, but this sticking out the back, that really takes away from your departure angle, and having a receiver hitch stick way down here with this sticking all the way up the back, I think that would turn into an anchor more than anything and probably bend it. So like I said, just a little information on a Humvee hitch extension.